Hello, hello, hello. Happy Monday. Good morning. How is everyone doing? This is the time to grab your cup of coffee, your tea, your water, bundle up now that we're heavy into winter, and enjoy the next 90 minutes. This session is called The Great Reset. We're doing all things money, finances, and your settlement blueprint. So, this is more of a hands on workshop that Melissa is going to lead today, pulling up her spreadsheets, the things she's created that helps our members go through this. The members today, so Melissa Gregg, she is our divorce mediator, financial mediator, divorce strategist, all things big picture divorce. We have Emily Flowers, who is our divorce mortgage lending specialist, and myself. I help our members post-divorce launch their side hustles or their business in all things branding and marketing. So we like to start these sessions just kind of going over some things we're seeing in our industries right now. So Emily, what's going on in the home world?
It's kind of the same old, lots of questions about, can I stay? And listening to situations where you might have challenges. Maybe your mortgage was modified or you went late, or you're trying to assume the mortgage and you're having difficulty with the servicer. When you have those situations where you're looking for a loan assumption or a loan modification, things like that, please keep in mind that the servicer is the one who actually takes care of that. The servicer is who you pay your bill to. And they make zero money, $0 off a loan assumption or a loan modification. So although you want it, they don't care about helping you urgently. So you will have to be the conductor of that entire train. And it will almost become like a full-time job to stay on top of them, see what they're needing, remind them that you still exist, and things like that. And those processes can take a really long time, 6, 9, 12 months. So I just want everyone to understand, because I don't know that I've spoken about it before, but that is a very real thing that people need to realize, that there's a much longer time frame, and that you are the one driving that ship. So
yeah, things tend to stay the same, but then also very different in your world all the time.
Correct.
Yeah. In my world, which is kind of, I don't know, all things marketing, content, and just side hustle in general, I was having a really good conversation with someone this weekend. He has his own content business, and we were just discussing, what do you do when things are really low? When the time comes where maybe you had 2 months and all the clients are calling you, emailing you, everyone wants a new proposal, and then weirdly the next month everything's quiet, or maybe like me, I've been sick for 2 weeks, so it's like you just have to put pause on certain things. But how do you balance growth in the dark times and not completely stressing about overdoing it? So I think that this relates a lot with divorce as well, and kind of going through the process. There are going to be some months where you're so busy filling out paperwork. There are going to be some months where you're meeting with the lawyer, the mediator, Melissa, Emily. And then other months it's like, hey, so why hasn't anyone emailed me back? And it's kind of puts you in this panic mode. But I think personally, when I'm going through these ups and downs, in the down, I really just try to grow quietly. I do things like ideation. I just my notes app on my phone is just insane with doodles and ideas and what could I start building, instead of the panic of just waiting around. Because it's also kind of like the law of attraction, right? If we wait and we are trying to push that silence, the only thing we're going to get is more silence. So it's build the abundance in the downtime, and then you start to see randomly, then a random new person emails you, or your lawyer finally reaches back out. So I just thought that was relevant, and it's good with perspective. Melissa, what about you? What's going on in your world?
Well, I think that we've been posting out on various platforms about what people can do for themselves. And so, even as we kind of are live on YouTube or live on TikTok, and we've been talking about forensics. And I think that the biggest thing that people really loved about the forensics is that this is an area that is a little bit of an unknown. It's an area that people are more concerned about the money, whether it's hidden money, whether it's transferred assets. And they really don't know other than to hire, somebody who's going to trace the money or follow the money. They really don't know how they can get started. And what if they don't find anything? And in the forensics, that's always been kind of the issue is that you you have an instinct, you think that there's some money missing, but in order to quantify it or to use it in court, you're going to have to hire an expert. And so there's this middle ground of like, if I want to settle, if I want to make a settlement offer, if I want to just push over something, can I do enough? And so a lot of what I've been kind of thinking about over the past couple of weeks has been how do you do enough to get the offer over to try to settle it and then worry about the depositions or going to court or all of those things later, right? Because those things are going to incur like an expert could cost 15, $25,000. Trial could cost $50,000 for your attorney, right? And that's just one side. If we look at it, like at the end of the day, if you and your spouse are each paying those things, that's coming out of the marital pie, right? That's coming out like you're still going to split everything up. So it's not like, oh, if I can save money, and if they're toxic, they're going to delay you in the process. So they're basically going to make it so that each hearing is ineffective. They're going to make it so that discovery, they're not going to give you the documents. And so I think online, most of the questions that we've had have been around subpoenas, whether they can do some of these things, whether they can use ChatGPT to do some of these things. And so we kind of created a bunch of different guides that will walk people through what can you do. And we always talk about like there's file and finish. So you might need a lawyer to come in and file the case, although there's a lot of providers around the country that can help you and the documents are available. And you might need somebody to finish the case. Like if that toxic person keeps you in the court system, you might need a lawyer to help you, and all the states are changing all the time. So in some concept, like we focus on like pro se, which is how do you represent yourself? I'm not going to tell you that I know how to do that. Okay. That's not like my role for 20 years has been coming into high conflict, high dollar divorces and being the financial person. And so the lawyers and the judges are kind of the gatekeepers of this legal process, but they have no idea about the money. So if you can come in and do like some of these things that we're going to talk about today, and it's basically like 4 or 5 things that you can do that you have control over, then you can push forward your financial settlement offer, which then plays into the fact that you are legally getting divorced, right? But if you don't do some of these things, like if you think money is missing and you're like, well, he's transferred it offshores or she's, spent it all. You're going to spend a lot of money quantifying things that are gone. Like they're already gone. You're not necessarily getting them back. And so really they go into the settlement offer. So it's been a lot of discussions around settlement offers. How can I take control? My lawyer has fired me. My lawyer's not calling me back. I got another bill for $5,000 after, I thought that first retainer was it, but now I got another bill. And so I think that we have a lot of, newer people in the Divorce Allies. And again, the Divorce Allies is really a place that we are typically working with women and guiding them through the process. But the Divorce Vault.com is where we are offering these downloads for couples. Like we first tell you to try to work together. Like the moment you get all of these people involved, it's just going to be retainer after monthly fee. And we see it happening, and you can't like pause it, right? You can't say, you know what? I don't know. Do you guys in this room have $5,000 a month to pay towards, professionals? Like, I don't have that type of just liquid income sitting around, wanting to be spent every single month for what? For them to go to hearings, for them to deal with your toxic spouse who won't respond properly. So I think what we wanted to do for December is really, how can you take control of some of these things? What can you do? And at some point, if you do the guide or you do our templates, you might need a strategist, right? You might need a lawyer, and you can work with them on maybe an hourly basis, right? Maybe on a strategy session. Maybe the lawyer tells you what you need to do and you do some of it. Maybe your forensic or your expert does something, even your business valuation, even your home person, even Anna doing the marketing. And we have Kristen, she's not available today, but Kristen is kind of, our trauma reset guru, right? Our meditation and our child parenting plan kind of guru. But at the end of the day, ChatGPT has been a game changer in this, and we need to start taking control. If you don't have the money, you got to figure out ways. We just have found in the Divorce Allies that not a lot of people are talking about this. Like, not a lot of people are guiding you. They want to get paid to do it for you, right? And at the end of the day, that's just probably not going to save you any money. And this is a closed system. So, like, if you deplete your assets, there's less for you to get, even if you split everything 50-50. And if you have a toxic spouse that is also depleting your assets, you're going to have less. So that's the focus for today. We're going to redo this same webinar on December 29th because our lovely Divorce Allies team is taking the day off. But I never love to take days off. Like, why would I do that? So we're going to kind of come back around. Maybe by that time, people have downloaded some of these templates. They've walked through, they've spent the holidays. We have a holiday guide that Emily put together that we're going to push out this week as well. Maybe you do some of the work in the dark, right? Like, you start to collect those statements, you start to look through them. That's the goal of Follow the Money, which we're launching today, is you get the statements at some point. Like, what are you going to do with them? How do they move the needle? How do they help you in negotiation? And some of the tips that I've seen, these are actual ways that I've used to testify in court. These are actual things that I think move the needle. And we'll talk about that. Like, what are you going to do for settlement is different than what I would do for court, but you may never get to court. If 90% of cases settle, you're not going to get to court, right? So you're doing all this work to have it. We had one last week. Trial was Tuesday. 2 years we were in this. They settled on Monday at 3 p.m. So I don't know if they had already paid all the lawyers, because again, everybody needed to be prepared already by Tuesday. Like, I had already gone through depositions. They had already gone through depositions. We had huge marital waste claims, but the client did a ton of the work. So I testified to some of her work, and it saved her a bunch, because I knew it was going to settle. Like, there was so much stuff. There were so many skeletons in the closet that were going to come to light if they went. So that's my big opening for the rest of the process. And anything that we talk about that you don't have access to, if you're a member in the Divorce Allies, you're going to receive it in a lot of our emails that come out every week. Again, joining the Divorce Allies is like $22 a month. I'm going to also send out a code. I might even be able to pull it together during this. So one thing I forgot is that I'm trying to give you guys a code to get a little discount because you guys were here, right? So you're already in the Allies. We'll give you a little code to download some of these things, but not all of them are relevant. And then again, Anna's here and Emily's here to talk about how we use ChatGPT and to not be scared of it, even if your lawyer's like, oh my gosh, never use that. Lawyers are not using it. Experts are poo-pooing it. Everybody in town, like everybody in the divorce community is like, oh, it's probably incorrect and it's hallucinating. Listen, if it's 75% correct and you can talk to an expert to check it, you're going to still save money. So that's the whole thing today is how do we save money? And then Anna and Emily will be kind of getting some questions. If you have questions on any of the platforms that we're live on, please feel free to ask them. We'll get to them. If not, December 29th, we'll come back around and be more questions and answers and things like that. But this is more for our members and to walk them through at least the 4 or 5 areas that we've already created guides. We've already created, downloads that you can access immediately. And it's the areas that we've seen through 20 plus years of doing this that you do have control. You don't have control over everything. We already know that. It's a legal process, but this will be more of the control. So Anna, where should we go next?
Well, I don't know. Should we just jump right into it? Or do you want me to talk about, do you want to do any ChatGPT stuff first? Or do you want to get just straight into Excel?
I'd like you to stay on because I'm going to go real quick through the financial disclosures and the position statement. And I think the position statement is really, so the 5 things that we typically see that you have access to or you can do something with is downloading your financial disclosures. So we're going to start there. Then you put together your position statement, which is really like a summary for your entire team. Anytime, like even before you go hire a lawyer, put together this position statement. You want to talk to Emily about the house, put together a house position statement. You want to talk to Anna about marketing, side hustle. I need to make money because this person has me staying at home with the kids and now is trying to lock me out. Like put together your position statement of like what you want to do, where your focus is. It gets you, it's almost like it gets you very narrowed in and focused as opposed to a lot of times at the beginning of divorce, we're all over the place. Like we're dysregulated, we're traumatized, we are scared as hell that we're not going to have any money in this process. We have a toxic person that's trying to lock us out of things. So we kind of want to go through that position statement, which is a working document over time. And we have a sample of that. We're going to go to the settlement offer. That's a little bit harder. And so we'll show you what it looks like, big picture. And then follow the money is really our forensic stuff. So that's what we want to spend a decent amount because people love this. And I'm telling you, this is the one area that people pay a lot of money and they don't get any results. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. But like, what if you can't find the money? Like sometimes these guys are good, right? And ladies are good. Like they're not criminals, but they're crafty and it takes a lot of money to figure it out. And this will also be a little comparison of like, if you have business bank account information that you finally get, how do you compare it to the tax return? Because the odds are the tax return is bogus. Just FYI, probably even your personal tax return is bogus. I hope the IRS isn't on this call, but it is what it is, right? You don't care about going to the IRS and telling them that you or your spouse, because, like your innocent spouse or whatever, you don't want to go tell them that even your spouse did it. Like, that's not where you want to go. You want to use this for negotiation. You want to use it for leverage. So we might talk about leverage and timing, but we have a ton of videos out about that. Check out our YouTube channel for the Divorce Allies or for my personal platform, Valuation Mediation. We have tons of videos about all of this, right? You are your biggest advocate in this divorce process. And we have already created like 2 years worth of information of how to go about these very niche ideas, right? Even Anna has tons of videos about side hustle. Emily has tons of videos about the house. Kristen has tons of videos about co-parenting and parenting plans. So it's all out there. We're going to kind of be pretty narrow in here so that we hit these highlights pretty quickly. And at the end of the day, the fifth one is mediation. How do you prep for mediation? How do you bring that settlement offer? How do you bring that marital waste that we're going to start calling questionable items? Okay, so it's not so instigative. And then worst case, you got to go to deposition, you got to go to trial. We have tons of videos about that. So, and we have a guide that Anna's been working on for a while about the depositions. So again, it's all there. It's just that, are you ready to take those steps to do the work? And it is work. That's why we're here every week, so that we walk you through doing the work every week. Just set like small goals. Like, I'm going to download those those financial disclosures. Just set small things that can help you so that you don't feel overwhelmed. And at the end of this month, if you did that for the next 3-4 weeks, while everybody's like shopping and I don't know, hanging with their family. Like, if your family's toxic, then like plan in the dark. Like, don't let that stop you. So that's where we're going to go. I don't know if we want to check if we have any comments that we want to just we're not going to be able to go through all the comments today, but definitely if you have specific questions that we can answer, let's go for those. We do see your comments. We do appreciate all the love, because you guys do like totally make me feel like an egomaniac in the comments. Love you guys. NT, I see you all over the place. I appreciate you so much. But let's see what else we got going on.
There's not really any questions in the comments. There's just a lot of comments and chatter. It's really fun actually to watch. I agree with you. But we do see you. We see you all over the place. And everybody's just commenting a little bit about, being scared of not having the money, the income or assets to survive. So that's what we're doing today to help out. So.
Okay, so why don't I get right into it? And again, if you guys are by chance, if you guys are on like TikTok, because we are kind of going live everywhere, if we might have a question. If you're on TikTok or you're on YouTube, we're actually live on YouTube too, so you can see my screen when I start showing it. But I think we have a few questions that I might, let me do now. Go ahead and ask them, and I'm going to get my screen going for the presentations.
So one of them is, when does your income stop being included in the process?
That's a great question. So it depends on the state that you are in, if your income is still going to be included. So this is where there's one thing that you can Google. And right now, even in the presentation, I'm kind of showing the state links. And so this is where you can get your disclosures for each state to download. But income, so one of the things you want to Google for your state is the date of valuation. And the date of valuation for anything is either going to be the date of trial or it's going to be the date of separation. Okay. So in a state where it's the date of separation, which Missouri and Illinois, if you're somebody that's kind of in those lands, because I'm kind of seeing who's asking the question, and I think they could be in one of those states, that you're really going to see that the date of separation is going to put that line in the sand, right? Sometimes even California, I want to say, could also be. It could be the date of filing. It could be the date of separation. And then if you're arguing about the date of separation, obviously that's going to, come into play. But usually it's not like a long time period. If it's a date of trial, then it means that it's always updating. So that means if you're making income and it's updating and updating and updating, it's like whatever marital income. So I would say, obviously, utilize the marital income, pay your fees for this divorce process out of marital income. Don't tap your separate income. But if it was the date of separation, everything freezes at that date. So whatever values were in your accounts, whatever value of the house, whatever value of the business is going to freeze at that date. If it's state of trial, it's going to move forward. If you earn money and you keep on earning money, like right now, everybody's paying out bonuses, right? Bonus comes in, guess what? That bonus is marital money and it could be split. Okay. Any future things is not necessarily going to be included. So like a future bonus is not necessarily going to be included in what you would get right now. You got some other questions?
Yeah, she goes on to say, our first court appearance since financials were submitted, will they need to be submitted again later?
Yeah. And this is why when we get into kind of the property statement and the settlement offer, that property statement is typically like a rolling forward document. It's going to be different than what you file in the court. So like what you're looking at right now, if we click on, and I don't know, it's probably going to not necessarily like if we click on, let's see if it goes to there. Okay, so I'm going to pull this up. So when we click on the link in our file for California, right? And we go into California, it's going to have like certain documents and agreements that let's see, it's even like how to start, how to do all of these things. So it shows you what you need to do, but there are forms that you start to fill out. See this, like share your information. Why must you do it? What are the final disclosures? So in a lot of these things, you're going to be filling out a declaration. And this declaration is what you're going to want to update with the court. Our settlement spreadsheet is going to be what you internally are going to update, because yes, every single time you go to court, you probably want the most recent. Like right now, we're at the beginning of December. You'd probably want the recent November ending, right? And that's going to be really helpful because that's the most up to date. But either you're going to have your lawyer is going to be updating that, or your financial expert is going to be updating that, or you update that, which means pull all of those statements for that month, put them in a nice binder, give, like an online folder, and then give that to your person or update it yourself. So that's why we share our property statements, so that you're updating it yourself, and then you're providing that to your lawyer so they can update the financial disclosure. Typically, the financial disclosure is not updated every month through the court. It's updated like, right prior to certain settlement hearings, or it could just be uploaded like every 6 months, right? So sometimes you're basing it, if you go to mediation, I would recommend updating it. Okay, does that cover that one?
That covers that one. Would you like to go on?
Yep, please.
Okay. What to consider number-wise when trying to buy out a partner from the house equity? That one's for me. Well, it's really what the house is worth versus what you owe is the equity in the home. And what you need to consider is, how are you going to value the home? So if you are, if you're buying out a partner, you're obviously trying to keep the house. So if you're keeping the house, you would use an appraisal to do so. You can kind of start with any online value, but really an appraisal can help you. I would very much say that you should find a divorce appraiser that can actually testify and give you a general purpose appraisal. Or if you think you can settle in about 4 months, you can actually have a lender order it, because the lender will be the only one that will be able. That's the one that's used when you do the refinance, if you're going to refinance it. So really it's the value of the house and then everything that you owe. So if you have a first mortgage, a HELOC, all that stuff, it all gets taken out of that. And then the other side of that, because that's the loan to value side, that's what they call it, is what is your income And that could be potential income. It could be support of any kind. It could be lump sum income. It could be what, your job versus what kind of debts you have every month. That's the other side of the coin when qualifying for a mortgage and what you're able to pay your spouse. So just because they want 50% of the equity, let's say you have $100,000 in equity and you owe them $50,000, you might not qualify to take all $50,000 out of your mortgage to pay them. You may have to equalize that in another way. So hopefully that answers that question in the most basic way I can explain it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that when we're looking at the financial settlement offer, we're looking at just putting that on there as the value of the house less the debt, and then you got to figure out if you're going to sell it, right? And if you're going to sell it, then it kind of goes half the equity goes on each of your sides, and whenever you sell it, you're going to split it. Or if one of you keeps it, all of that kind of goes on one of your sides, and then the other person gets other equity or assets that are similar. So if there's $100,000 of equity in the house, the other spouse is going to get $100,000 worth of equity in something else. So investment accounts, post-tax typically. So that's where we're seeing it kind of equalize, as opposed to everybody split each asset down the middle. That's not exactly how it works. And this is, to give you a perspective, this is California's property statement, I guess, if you will, and what their form looks like that you would file. I just pull up California because it's probably a decent one. A lot of them are even more like in the dark ages, but you can see it kind of has you listing out very similar to our settlement offer statement when you get to it. But it says like the date acquired, the market value, the amount of debt, and who's going to keep what. Okay. So this is just a simple thing and that's a disclosure with the state. So they have the same type of disclosure that would be basically available for, usually it's probably the main disclosure is going to have like income and expense things. So again, these are kind of basic forms that you would look at, and you can see all of these are online, that you can download and take a look at what it looks like. So these are some of the pieces of the puzzle and all of these are the state downloads. Do we have any other questions as well?
We have a lot of questions, actually.
Okay, great.
Okay. Is it worth going through LinkedIn contact of husband's business associates and business he is associated with?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, if you are going to try to hunt down money, if you are going to hunt down, the biggest thing is that if somebody owns a business and they are filing their own taxes and they are the only business owner and there's potentially even cash involved, or there's payments that they can say, hey, pay me later, pay me next year, hold that money for me, brother, cousin, father, sister, mother, whatever. You have to do a lot of the digging, so and I don't know which I can't totally pay attention to the comments right now, but I don't know who this is. But if it's like we have somebody right now that is a realtor and they're selling all these $1 million properties, we have to go try to find what they've sold because they're not declaring it very well. So in the follow the money that we're going to show you guys in that download, we actually pull up, here's the tax return, and it says that we made $100,000 last year. Yet we're living in a $1 million house, and there's no way that we're only making 100,000. So you're going to need to go to your bank statements and look at what were the deposits that came in over time, add them up. Oh, wow, we have deposits of 300,000 and we're only reporting 100,000. Where is this going? Okay. So if it goes to another country, you might need a lawyer in that country. And so at the end of the day, you want to see where it's going and then put a list together and say, hey, here's a list of $200,000 that's missing out of our accounts. Tell me where it went, right? Force them to do some of the work instead of you doing all the work. But for the beginning stuff, you need to be sleuthing. You need to be going to their your home office, looking in the files, looking in the computer if you have access to it, trying to log into some of the accounts. You need to go to their office. Like, it's the holidays, bring some treats to the office, and then, I don't know, spill something on your spouse and make them go to the bathroom and look in the files, look in the trash can. Are there empty envelopes that say bank names? Look at who they're like. If you subpoenaed some of their clients, you're going to put some major pressure on them. You would only pull that leverage like when you're really ready and you already have a settlement offer, you already know some of these things. But yeah, at the end of the day, you're going to have to sleuth your way into finding some of this information, because people are really good at hiding it. The court is not going to be the police. The court is not going to pay your expert to go find this. The court is not going to pay your lawyer to go do this. And your lawyer doesn't know where to look, right? So yes, if you have an instinct, look in those spaces, look in the box that has always been, go down into the basement and all the old client files or all the old bills and pull out some of this stuff and sleuth your way around. You can go to the state assessor for any state and search for businesses, search for people that they're affiliated with, search for business names, search for names that they show up on. And you might find some different things. If they're in real estate, you need to hook up with somebody who has access to the MLS and see, like, are these businesses now showing up as sales of properties? You know, if you're looking for hidden accounts, you're looking in the statements and looking for transfers to accounts that you're not aware of, or large withdrawals, large counter withdrawals, which could be a cashier's check. And a cashier's check would then be taken from one bank to another bank. But if you're going to move money internationally, typically you have to move it on your person. And so that's where you would see somebody moving cash. So you would see withdrawals coming out of the bank account. You would see the cash then, and then you would see travel. So then they would be traveling to those, you know, specific places, Bahamas, or even places where they live, or they have family and things like that.
So a real estate agent or a lender can typically find out what that realtor has sold and the properties and everything. So, and trace the amount and all of that good stuff. So you can actually find that information on everything that person has sold if you're looking for that. It's pretty easy for us to find. I have some state specific questions, or I can move on to another one about a deferred compensation plan and what happens with it.
Yeah. And just because we do have a live TikTok going on, and evidently we're not paying attention to any of the questions, which we'll get to maybe, or we'll be doing another live this week to answer a lot of them. Sometimes if Anna's keeping track of them, I'll actually make video responses to you. So we got you, but we're kind of focused in the Divorce Allies circle right now because these are our paying members. And if you want to be a paying member, it only costs $22, so you can join. It'd be fun. Okay, what are our next questions for some of our members?
What if my spouse has a deferred compensation plan? What happens with that?
Yeah, so deferred compensation plan, stock options, pension plans, annuities, all of those, if they're facilitated through the company, then you want to probably subpoena the HR records of the company. And so that's going to give you of what is vested currently and what is sort of the future. So at all times, especially with stock options or deferred comp, even if it is already earned at the date of trial or date of separation, then that could still be a marital asset. So if it just hasn't been paid out, that may not mean anything. So if there's $100,000 in deferred comp then you're going to get $100,000 of other assets. So again, it doesn't totally matter if they can pull that money out. It means that there is a value sitting in there and that is an asset on your balance sheet. And I think, in something like this, you would list the deferred comp and you would have the total, and then the total is going to be in whoever column is it's owned by, and then you're going to get equivalent amount of other information. But a lot of times, like with a pension, you're going to ask the company, like, can you give me the value of the pension payment if we were to retire today? Or sometimes you can even tell them, like, we're getting divorced, can you give me that information? And they're going to give you like an actual statement that's coming from them that you could utilize. For deferred comp, it's going to be the same thing, but you're typically looking at year-end statements. So, when people get paid by a company, they get like a payroll statement or a wage statement. And a lot of times those are being sent electronically now because everything's direct deposit. So you might have to subpoena, or you would ask it in discovery. And those year-end statements are really great. Like even one right now is going to show you how much money they made, what was in bonus, what was in deferred comp, what was put into their pension, what was put into their retirement. All of these things are going to have values that you need to make sure you put on there. And it's probably things that people are not going to talk about. So if you get their employee file from their employer, it's also going to talk about like how their wage has increased over time. It's going to maybe give you historically what has happened to the bonus, because the bonus could still be part of income for the payment of alimony or child support, maintenance, spousal support, whatever it's called. So you're going to want to request that. But that payroll statement is like key. So that could be in their emails. It could be that they save that in a file somewhere electronically. They probably have access to it. If they don't, the next time they get paid, it is a statement that is giving them all the information of the year. And that's going to be pretty important. That's going to be different than K1s or W2s or 1099s. All of those are different. You probably want all of those if you're looking at income.
Okay, this one, it is state specific, but I can see where it could be relevant in anywhere. This viewer has the date of first separation, then a brief get-together part, and then the second and final separation. So, and that happens a lot where you've tried to go through this process, then you've tried to get back together, and then you've tried it again. What would you consider to be the date of separation then?
So the date of separation is, so it is sometimes a date that you're going to argue in court. Okay, so if you don't necessarily agree with it, it is very much a legal issue. So I'm not giving you legal advice. But I would say more often than not, the court's going to look at the most recent separation date as the date of separation. Now, if you guys moved out and you moved out on a certain date and somebody filed for divorce and then you kind of got back together and then you kept the divorce, like there's a lot of gray area, then what is the benefit to the other person for saying a different date? Because they're going to want whatever date's like best for them. If you had less money at that point and then they received like $100,000 bonus, like obviously you're going to fight about the date. But for the most part, it's going to be like you need to look at your state and figure out like what defines the date of separation. Was it the date that you moved out? You filed for divorce? You guys actually believed that you were done, right? I mean, having like marital relations is not going to be helpful. That's going to continue to move that date of separation potentially. So it's when it's gray, it can be fought in court. Anywhere where there's a gray area where you guys disagree, it can be fought in court. If there's a benefit for a certain date over another date for you or your spouse, it's going to be fought in court. And so if there's a person that's locking you out of the money, you might have to go get a PDL to get the money to even hire the experts. Sometimes you can do that in mediation, but a lot of times it's a PDL, it's a pendente lite, I think is what, like, there's a lot of Latin terms in the court system. But it's actually like a hearing to get temporary spousal support so that you can pay, or like it, sometimes the courts will say, hey, you've been paying the bills already, spouse, continue to pay them, and then provide like a stipend for living and things like that. But a lot of times we're going to do an income analysis to even get to that point. So
the next few questions have to do with housing. Do you want me to answer those and go on, or do you want to continue on? Okay. Sure. So one of them says, I already got my house appraised. If the house needs a new furnace and water heater, can I get some money for it or to pay for the replacement? So it's funny, we've been talking about this a lot. Melissa and I kind of agree that either the appraisal is a bird's eye view. That is very different than an inspection. So the inspection would actually go further with maybe some deferred maintenance that needs to happen on the house. So it may not just be the new furnace and water heater. It may be other things. But absolutely, you can start walking through, if you're going to keep the house, negotiating the deferred maintenance on it into what you owe them. Because if you're going to keep the house, then you're obviously going to have to tend to these things. And they lived in the house during that time where those things were maybe being ignored, or just, natural wear and tear on the house over time. So sure, you can ask for whatever you want, can't you, Melissa? And it's just, depends on if you're actually going to get it. But yes, should you put that in your calculations? Absolutely, you should.
Yeah. If there's improvements that are needed on a house and you plan on keeping it, then you need an inspection so that you can reduce the price of the house that you're putting in, because you're keeping that and you're going to eventually have to pay it. If you're going to sell it, then does it need to be done before it's sold to get the highest price? Well, that's going to be a decision. The court isn't going to force you to make improvements to sell a house. They're going to just say, put it on the market, sell it, whatever it sells for, you guys are going to split that. And sometimes that is the most cash in the marriage. And so if that's the case, then they're going to say, okay, then you guys are both going to have cash to go figure out your next living situation. Also, because like if you have an appraisal for $100,000 for that second house and you need a roof of $30,000, what I would want to say is, in this amount, I would want to say that it's actually worth 70,000, right? And I would want to put a note in here that, the appraisal was 100K. And again, this is why we do this in a settlement offer, so that you are pulling forth, like you would either put it in here or in a footnote at the bottom of here. It would say, okay, this is some of the things that we agree to sell the house, but if it's kept, there needs to be an appraisal, or we estimate the amount that needs to be done on the house. So again, all of that comes into play in the settlement offer. And in the negotiation, if you want to keep the house, because again, you're keeping the house, it's not worth that total amount because you need all of these improvements. You have an inspection that is a third party saying these are the improvements. Usually they estimate the cost for those improvements, and then you're kind of off to the races. Then it's not you saying it, it's a third party saying that these things need to be done, right?
Correct. So also note that just because the appraiser that you hired during the divorce said that you need those things, if the lender's appraiser is the only one that's going to count, but the lender appraisal, if the appraiser calls out that you need a new furnace and water heater or roof or anything, you will not be able to close without those things being tended to and proof that they were done. So whether you sell it, the buyers lender will require, if it's called out on the appraiser or you're refinancing, if the appraiser calls it out, it has to be fixed, proof that it's fixed. The appraiser has to go back out and check it off, all of those things before you close in either scenario. So it's absolutely part of the negotiation. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everything about it. Deciding whether you're going to keep the house or sell the house or whatever with the house. My opinion is you look at the numbers. Can you afford it? Do you want to afford it? Is there deferred maintenance? Are you happy with, some of it's emotional, but a lot of it has to do with the numbers. So it's really important to find out from a lending professional if it even makes sense for you. The other thing about realtor maintenance things, pending, escrow account, all of that stuff should go into your settlement agreement. The lender will need to see that. We need to know who the escrow balance is going to go to. We need to see all those things in your agreement, that you're selling the house and that the realtor fees will be split between the parties, that the balance of the escrow account at the time of whatever was this, and that it goes directly to the person refinancing because they have to set up a new escrow account, whatever it is. So those are absolutely negotiation points that will need to go into your agreement.
Yeah. And a couple of people have asked questions like, if I haven't even filed for divorce, what am I doing for my tax return? Like right now we're in December for getting divorced. And if you can't get divorced by 12/31, the IRS cares about what happened as of 12/31 of that year. So if you're not divorced and next year you're concerned, and this is a big issue, if you are concerned that what you are seeing right now in the tax return is some shady stuff, which again, if you own a business and you're doing your own tax return, there's going to be shady stuff. It's just hands down going to happen. Even if you own a business and you use a CPA, it's going to be some shady stuff. So you would want to potentially file married filing separate next year or this year. And that's just a choice that you can make. And then you would have to file your own tax return. He files his own tax return and, all of your income, and then you have to split. It does get complicated, but again, that is going to be the clearest indication that you are concerned about the tax return for sure. And I think it will protect you in the future. If something does come back on any of those tax returns, you can be like, listen, I knew there was some shady stuff happening. That's why I started filing on my own. Sometimes that's going to cause you to have more taxes than if you filed married filing jointly, of course, because that's the whole benefit of it. And I think you just have your accountant run it both ways, or you look at TurboTax to see what the situation is. We also had somebody that said, I think, tell me how to negotiate the deferred maintenance, please. I don't know if that's a deferred maintenance or compensation, but if it's deferred maintenance on the house, then I think that you are basically looking for, again, just noting it on here. Either you can note it like this was 100,000 and I took the 30,000 off, or you would even add it as like improvements or something if you wanted to keep it on here as $100,000. And then I wanted to reduce it by $30,000 in some capacity. This is our property statement that you can download if you need it. So that's going to still get you to the same place, right? So, and I would just put in here like improvements needed, things like that. So again, it's a discussion, it's a negotiation, but everywhere this is the same negotiation. Do you have some more comments?
If I use the marital home payout to purchase my new home in March, will I need to prepare for increased taxes? You just really need to talk to your accountant about that, and telling them, that you did get a new home. You're actually going to get credit for that as well.
Expand on that question though, because like there's not going to be necessarily a tax. Like if you get marital money from the settlement and you're now using it for the new home, there's no tax event that happens. You're just going to use it, and then you're going to have that new house with the new taxes, and they're going to give you a statement at the end of the year. So I think what she's saying is, like, is she going to have to say that she used the money and there's some tax event? There shouldn't be another tax event that happens when you're using the money, unless when you sold the house, it triggered a tax event. Okay. So let's not go into too much detail about that, because I would talk to your CPA.
Agreed.
Who is really going to prepare your tax return, or like a TurboTax, or like I don't know what they still have H&R Block anymore, but go to somebody like that.
Yeah, it'll be hard to determine a taxable event. It's a case by case basis.
Yeah.
So
Or
I agree with
expand
you
on your
that.
question a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you please elaborate on the home inspection? What steps do I need to take, and what info do I need to gather to include it on the property statement to use in a settlement offer? You just call a trusted home inspector, ask friends, ask realtors, ask, whatever, who they use, have them come over. They are going to inspect every nook and cranny of your home. They're going to get up on the roof. They're going to go in the crawl space. They're going to, do all the things. And then they're going to give you a report. And then the report you can use to maybe talk to a contractor and come out and give you quotes. And then from the quotes, then you would start putting some of that deferred maintenance, or what, things that need to be repaired, all that stuff into putting a money value to it to put into the maybe property statement or the negotiation.
Yeah. And we kind of showed, there are a lot of national providers for inspections. And again, the reason why we're doing this is because, for the most part, even when you're putting together like your income and expense statement for the court, you're going to downplay the issues, right? So if you're keeping the house and you don't know that it's got a foundation issue, that's a problem, right? You're keeping an asset that has like basically a hidden issue that it might actually convince you to sell that asset. Okay. So if any time you're going to sell an asset in a divorce, you want to do it in the divorce, right? Because then you lose, they lose, everybody splits that actual cash that comes in, as opposed to guessing. If you keep the house, even if it's got equity, you can't typically tap that equity very easily immediately. Okay. So you're just going to sit on a savings account, basically, whereas they're going to take investments or securities, and that's money that can go earn money, right? That is an income producing asset, and you're getting an income depleting asset. Your house is a money pit. You're going to continue to put more money in it. Now, if you get a second house that you can potentially rent, that's going to be an income producing, a Airbnb. Do not assume that you can Airbnb any house. Like, there are a lot of restrictions in a lot of neighborhoods on this Airbnb concept that people were not aware of until they started Airbnb and things. Okay. Or occupancy issues. Like, I know in my neighborhood, like, you can only have one family in the house. You can't rent it out. You can't do anything. In my office neighborhood, you can do whatever you want. Right. And so if you're in a condo, you need to be mindful of it. So those are some of the things that if you want to potentially sell something, you need to know the hidden costs of it. And a lot of times, even when we're putting like on this property statement, when we put the house on there, did you notice there's no fees? there's no fees for the realtor. There's no fees for selling it, time to sell it, to prep it,
Closing.
to any of it,
Yeah,
right?
closing
You're
costs.
taking that asset at the appraisal level. And it's the same with like a business is a little bit different. But even like the motor vehicles, you're going to put them at whatever they're worth, less the debt, and then you start to put in like your bank accounts, sometimes household goods or collections. If there's something separate, a lot of times gifts are separate. So somebody gives you an engagement ring, it's separate. Okay. Somebody gives you something like if your spouse, I mean, this is where I see a lot of high net worth divorces. So just bear with me because, they're giving them cars, they're giving them furs and jewelry and purses. If those were gifts and you can prove, like, did you take a video of you opening it at Christmas or your birthday? I mean, I'm just saying this is a crazy story, but like I had a client that was gifted a Lamborghini for her birthday. And that became a separate asset when we negotiated the settlement offer because it was a gift. They gave you a painting, things like that. So be mindful of what those gifts are. But even like securities, insurance policies, now retirement assets, we might look at the after tax. Like you really should look at the after tax value of like a retirement asset, a 401k, a pension, any of those things, and factor it in either based on your historical tax basis or your historical tax rate or what your future tax rate is going to be. But it's going to be, the onus is going to be on you or your financial expert. And if you haven't hired a financial expert, then this is your opportunity to know enough to be dangerous. And then you can meet with us for 90 minutes and we'll go through everything. We just met with somebody last week. They put all this together. I came in, there were 4 areas that we needed to adjust the numbers. Boom. They made the offer with their lawyer and with their financial expert. So they had other people in play. I was just sort of like a sanity check to it. And then you're also going to want to be really mindful. I think Emily hasn't talked about this, but pulling your credit report, that's going to be a pretty important thing to understand if you have some of these outstanding, like a HELOC, a line of credit, other loans that have been taken out in your name. I apologize, but that is happening a lot. And people do that a lot in very toxic marriages, is that somebody will get a line of credit on your social security in your name, and you should kind of know about it, especially if there's also outstanding credit cards. People get a credit card and then they add you to it. You're going to want to close down some of that, but you're going to want to know like what it affects your credit score. Everybody's so concerned about their credit score. I don't care as much about that, because I think you have so many other things to be worrying about at this time. But if it's an important thing for you, then you're going to want to not just shut down all those accounts immediately, but you're going to want to be aware of where your name is out there.
Yeah,
Okay?
I can see me doing a couple of different series on credit and value of the home and inspections, appraisals, things like that. So I'm sure that'll be coming in 2026.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we had
I think we're good.
Okay. So I didn't know if there were any questions that were on that came through. Okay.
Only one
Okay.
from the private chat, and it's my husband and I are getting divorced. Neither have filed yet. How will tax return work? I think you went over that already.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So nothing about the lender. Okay. So let's go through follow the money a little bit. And while we've been talking, I've kind of included like the financial disclosures. We kind of walked through the state links and we put them up. So this is a download. We actually offer this for $1. So, but if you post on any of our socials, we'll send you the link for free. We talked a little bit about the position statement, and I pulled up a sample of the position statement. So we have a download for that you can get started on. This is kind of what one looks like. and it's just a summary, like an overview. We do it where you dictate your story and into like a voice memo, and then you take the voice memo and you use ChatGPT or your other favorite AI, and you create a summary. And so typically I'm wanting you to create a summary, and do the paid ChatGPT, please. It's $20 a month, because it kind of locks down some of your information, or else you're just throwing it out to the world, but that's on you. But what we want is kind of an intro, like what are some of the main issues that somebody should know about your divorce, your marriage, right? The date of marriage are sometimes important. If you have a case, if you don't have a case filed yet, that's fine. It's going to be kind of like, like you don't want to give them the version that should be like an X-rated version, right? You don't want to give them the book version of all the things that have happened. You're going to seem very dysregulated in this process. So you want a summary, but you really want to focus on the top issues, because that, like, think of this as something you're going to give to your lawyer or your expert and say, here's big picture. Take it and read it for 5 minutes, and then let's talk about strategy. Right? As opposed to, for those of you who have already been in divorce, you've probably been spending an hour giving them the whole background, and then you paid for that hour, and then they haven't told you anything, right? So here's the top issues. You might have a narrative background. You might have some of the financial disclosures, because you've already put together, the settlement offer, or just a property statement, basically. And then what do you want? This is the hardest part in the position statement, is what do you want? Now, if you look at some of this, I also, and this is something that we typically will see, you're going to give to a mediator before mediation. Right here, this is the attachments or exhibits. So I list the income and expense statement. So we have something that comes in our download for the property statement, I believe. If not, there's a lot of these available. You're going to then have your property statement. You then might have a preliminary valuation of the construction business, right? So that shows them, hey, we own a business. Now, none of these things are in this position statement. Like, it's almost like, hey, I'm going to bring this, but I like, because if you give this position statement to mediation, your spouse is going to see it. The other lawyer is going to see it. And they're going to be like, whoa, wait. Oh, you have an appraisal of the marital home? Oh, you have account and debt? What if you have like another exhibit, right? Okay. It's not going to look pretty, but who cares? Exhibit F, that is not marital waste, although you can use that term. But what if it's questionable items, right? Or expenses, right? Gosh, I can't spell. Or withdrawals. Now, if somebody looks at that, the other attorney is going to be like, hey, buddy, why do we have these questionable items? Like, what are the questionable items? Well, that's where we're getting into the follow the money. Okay. So this is our new guide, Follow the Money, that's going to be available today. And it really walks you through how to do all of this. But what I want to show you is what a sample looks like. Okay. And this is where you're going to go through some of these statements, and you're going to start to analyze the statements, but people don't realize what it's going to look like as an exhibit. Okay. So is this how my exhibits look like? My exhibits are like a day long and a day wide. Okay. So this is a very simple version that, like, let's just assume that you have 2025. Okay. And you start to put in, in January 5th of 2025, there was a counter withdrawal or a transfer for $1,000. List it, right? If you want to come over here and you want to have some notes, you could have some notes in here, but be aware that somebody might look at these. So you might say, check made to cash, okay? Or cashier's check was written, but you don't know who it's to. So what you're doing is putting this list together, and you can see right here, it's questionable items, okay? Need explanation or proof of the use of funds for marital purposes. So I can see that money went out, but I don't know where it went. I want to give this list in mediation or in my settlement offer and say, hey guys, you come up and you tell me where it went. Great, thank you. And make them do some of the work, because a toxic spouse is lazy. Okay, they're lazy in the fact that they're not criminals. They're not going to hide things. They're going to hope you never look. So they're going to hope you never get this statement. They're going to hope you never drill through it. They're going to hope you don't have any money to pay an expert to look at it. And they're going to hope that probably you never even get to that point, which is why they're telling you, hey, let's just go to mediation and I'll give you a list of what we have and I'll tell you what you should take, and you should just settle for it because you're not going to get anything else, because the business is me, and we don't have any money, and so suck it up, buttercup. No, you need to go through, you can subpoena the records, you can get it through formal discovery, or you can get it through asking for the documents first. You can ask for it in answers to interrogatories. All of these things are legal things. This is where you might need a lawyer, even a limited scope lawyer who does some of these, who is like the middleman between the communications between you and your spouse. Typically, that's going to be needed if your spouse has a lawyer, okay? But when you're looking through your statements and you're looking through all of the things, you're like, oh yeah, that's a normal expense. And we are methodical. We go to Chick-fil-A on the same day. We go to get pizza every Friday. You know, we wake up and get our coffee. I'm not going to name that place because I don't go there anymore. We go and get our coffee every morning at some place, right? Then you're going to start to see things that don't make sense, right? They're going to be cash withdrawals. They're going to be transfers. They're going to be counter credits. So like in February now, and you want to list the date, you want to list the date. And then for like this number, I would also get that one page of the statement that shows that number, right? Just that one page. So that if you're in mediation or if you want to supply it behind it, that's what we do. Like I'm telling you the things that we do. You put that behind this summary, and now the other side can literally look through and be like, oh, yeah, I did transfer that. Oh, I did make a withdrawal for $500. Oh, I do have this expense that was, a Venmo to the affair partner, right? And you might want to list their name. I know that this is like triggering for a lot of you, but at the end of the day, this list is going potentially with your offer to the other side, to the other lawyer. And the lawyer is now looking at this and being like, dude, what'd you do? Like, how did this happen? Now, checks written, you might need the check copy, right? You might not have asked for that in your subpoena, which you need to ask for all the copies of the checks, or else they're just going to be listed. Go look at your statement. It just lists that number. It doesn't always list the copy. So if the check was written, what if this $5,000 check was written to taxes? Well, that might come off of it at that point, right? But now we're starting to see there's a whole bunch of things, now we have a transfer. So if there's a transfer to an account that you don't recognize, because again, you already have submitted financial disclosures to the court and they have said all the accounts that they claim they own. You've run your credit report and you notice there is a Chase credit card ending in 7878. There's a Chase bank account ending in 7878. It's not listed on your financial disclosure. If it's not listed on your financial disclosure, they lied. They lied to the court. Okay. Now the court is not the police. So you're going to go in and be like, hey, they lied to the court, sanction them, contempt of court. And the court's going to be like, hey, sir, hey, ma'am, did you accidentally leave this off your statement? Oh, darn it. Well, let's put it on the statement. And there's going to be no effect to your toxic spouse. And that's going to be a really hard lesson to learn, that the court is not going to protect you. You need to quantify it. The court may not care. Most states are no-fault states. There are still a few that you need a reason to get divorced. Infidelity is a reason. Infidelity doesn't necessarily matter in a no-fault state. This is all legal stuff. I'm not giving you legal advice. What they care about is did the infidelity result in you spending marital funds outside your marriage? So this is trying to calculate what are the questionable items that we need some explanation for. So you're forcing the other side to do the work. Now they have to go. Your toxic spouse has avoided giving you documents. You've had to pay for subpoenas. They are not making their attorney work because they're smarter than their attorney and they're doing everything. So you are now making them have to work. You're making them have to pay their attorney because their attorney's like, look at all of these items. And then now they have to go back through those statements. And you could go back years. You can go back as many years as you have time for. And they have to go back and say, well, I took that $1,000, but I went and spent it on our utilities. Okay, well, give me a receipt. I want a receipt of the payment of cash for those utilities. Because a lot of times if people are taking out cash, they're not going to go spend it on things that are normal. And if you in the past have used cash to buy a car, buy things out, like collections, gone to auctions and things like that, if you have kept cash in a safe, a lot of times the cash that comes in from the business is never being reported. Okay, let's just be honest. And so, but what you're looking for is when they took it out of marital money, make them prove that they used it on marital purposes. There could be expenses. Again, you're going to know faster whether those expenses are logical or not. There's patterns in the expenses. When they break the pattern, they go to a gas station that's far away. They were probably out doing something bad. They went to a restaurant that's far away. That's a lot more money than normally that you paid. I would encourage you to look at things that are above $100, $500, depending upon, because again, you're going to look a little dysregulated if you're like, hey, he spent $2.99 or she spent $3 here or there. It's not going to look great. Now, anytime you see like a 9999 or a 4999, they're trying to get enough money out to not trigger like a bank to say, hey, you're taking up too much cash. I've worked in the banking system. Do they really report that? Barely. Rarely do they do that. So again, don't expect the system to be the one that's going to check these people and correct it. Assume the system fails. You're putting together, now you have $27,000 worth of deposits or withdrawals. We have ATM withdrawals of $1,300, expenses of $1,200, checks written for $11,000. So now we have total questionable withdrawals or expenses of $41,000. Okay. Of that, a person can waste half of their own money. Okay. So if I want to go, if this person, and the court is going to say, if they're the main provider, if they're the person making all the money, the court's going to be like, well, you can go waste your money. Like you can go buy, like, again, the court's going to say, if you buy a Louis Vuitton every single month, that's going to be regular kind of spending and nobody checked it. Nobody, like, you could still do that if you make the money, right? So the court's going to be like, yep, you make the money. You can waste half of your money, but the other half could be marital waste. And you see, I do say marital waste in here. I don't always know if you should do that. It depends on how you want to instigate things. But that means that there's at least $20,000 of marital waste, because that's 50% of the questionable items that I want credit for. Okay. So where that goes is, let's go back to that sample property statement. And down at the bottom, we're going to say questionable items or marital waste. Okay. And we're going to go back, and what was that number? Like 21,000. 21,000. Now I'm going to say that goes in my spouse's column. So they benefited from a $21,000 amount that should still be in our bank accounts. Okay. So they're getting this asset. It's not really there anymore, But what that means is that you're going to get more of another asset. So if they already got benefit of that 21,000, you want 21,000 of assets from some other place. But when we look at this property statement, at the end of the day, it's going to add everything up, and it's going to then show that I only got credit for this amount. They got credit for more. They owe me 110,000 to get to a 50-50 split. So that is the equalization payment that they will owe you. Or you go back up here and you start to split things different. Like, I don't want to take on that debt, right? I'm trying to get these so that they're more even if you want to split them in assets. Okay, does that make sense? So like this joint business, again, or anywhere where we see, oh, these annuities and pensions, well, I'm going to take all of those. Okay, now they only owe me $60,000. So that's how this spreadsheet starts to change. Again, all of these are available. If you're in the vault and you're a VIP member, which means you're paying full price, by the end of the week, we're going to give you all of these spreadsheets and everything. A lot of you already have them. But again, this exact property statement is available for you to do this yourself. And then you would add the follow the money spreadsheet, and this becomes your exhibit on that position statement, right? So now I go back to this position statement and I'm listing these questionable items. When I go to mediation or go to try to settle this, I'm going to give them everything. And you're going to get a lot of pushback from your attorney about giving them everything. Listen, do you want to settle today or do you want to settle in 5 months? That's your choice. But for those 5 months, you're going to pay for every conversation you have with any lawyer and any expert. So I would choose wisely how you spend some of your time. One more thing I'm going to show you, then I think we have some questions. We might go a little bit over today. I know Anna also wants to maybe tell you about her thought leader blueprint, which is like how you start to make money online. Like, how do you make downloads for you to sell, right? Like what I'm doing in the stand store. Everything that we do is an example of what we teach. So if you see how we're selling these online, that's how you can do it as well. This is a one little simple statement that if you got the business bank account records and you just go through for 1 year and this could be 2024, probably you should start with 2024. Okay. So, which is real easy. You just go down here, you move or copy, you create a copy, you move it to the end. You say, okay, great. Now we have something for 2024. Okay. You change this to 2024. It's all going to be the same. You say 2024, right? So now you go back to 2024. This is the Bank of America account. You add up all the deposits. So they deposited $1,000 a month, and yet the tax return said $10,000 of gross income. So why did we have $12,000 coming in and only 10,000? So what I would typically see potentially is like, what if this was 5,000? This could be, what we want to know is, was this a loan or like a credit card, kind of advance pay, right? So if that's the case, there could be money in there that would not be on the reportable income. But you might put this together and say, listen, can you tell me why the deposits to the bank account, because you don't have to make any assumptions. Don't make any assumptions about what you think is happening. You ask that question to your spouse and get the answer and get them to prove where that money came from. But a lot of times in the statement, it will say cash advance, line of credit, loan. It comes from a loan processor or like a line of credit. So be mindful. But that's usually the one thing that I see that inflates income and makes it not the same as the reportable income, because that's not actually income from a tax perspective. So now you have your tax return, and on your personal tax return, and then you would request the business tax returns. On your personal tax return, this income may not show up. So it's going to be needed on the business tax return, but it could show up on the K1. But typically the K1 is going to say net income. So this is your gross tax revenue to the business. So internal business statements or the tax return. If there's a difference, you're just saying, hey, looks like there's a difference. Where did this $6,000 go? Could you please explain why it's different? You would take that same thing back to the sample property statement and say, deposits unknown or unidentifiable. And you would say, okay, there was $6,000 of deposits that we don't know where it went, and I did not get benefit for that. Now, in that case, you might put it as the whole amount, because again, it's sort of missing money as opposed to just marital waste. But a lot of times it could just be half the amount if you want to be conservative, that those deposits, if they came back, she could have depleted half of that and the rest of it went back in. So those are the big summaries. I think the only other thing that I will show you is that if you have a lot of bank accounts, one way that you might want to look at them is you would list all of the ending balance. And so in these accounts, you have a lot of different accounts. You look at the total, the change of value. This is way too much for this analysis, this summary, but we'll probably cover it on December 29th. But this is another spreadsheet that we're going to have in there that it showed that we started with accounts that had 19,000. We ended at the end of the year with 30,000, but we had income coming in and expenses. We should have had like 36,000 left over. 36,000 plus the 19,000 that we started with is 55,000. We only had 30,000. We're missing 25,000. So those are the three areas that I see that you would typically do. And so that is the big picture. Emily, I know we're getting close to the time. I know we might have some more questions. Let's answer them. And then
We do. We have
a lot.
Okay, we have a few. What if my spouse excessively gave money to church? Can I call it marital waste?
Yes. So a gift like any gift outside the marriage could be marital waste unless you've agreed upon it. So if you've agreed upon it and you've always given $1,000 a month, every month, and now they give 5,000, again, do they have proof that you've agreed upon this, or have you just accepted it, right? So yes, I think there's a claim for any. We actually had somebody that gave gifts of art to an art museum, and that gift was, we were able to still pull back and say, you can give your half, and if you give $1 million, then I want $1 million of other assets. Okay, so yes, that could be marital waste.
Okay, I have all this in a timeline, a Google Sheets, day by day for every year, but I don't know how to sort and analyze it all into one cohesive picture.
We'll probably talk on December 29th, or if that person is a member, then we'll go back in. So that's where I see this happening, is that's when somebody books a 90-minute session with us. Like most of us have 90-minute sessions. Mine are $500. But you book a 90-minute session, you bring all of your spreadsheets. I then fix them. I put pivot tables on them. I sort them. I show you how to do it. I give you back your spreadsheets so that you can use it and go forth and prosper. And that's usually a really effective way to get what you need.
That's really it as far as the questions go. So,
okay. Anna, you want to give them a little taste of the thought leader blueprint? So at the end of the day, you're going to control certain things in the divorce. If you don't have money to control everything and you need some experts, and quite frankly, if you're in a custody situations are the worst. Like there is no way to get around it. The court's not going to help you. It's going to be horrible. They're going to deplete your money. They're going to try to say, I want 50-50 custody, to try to screw you over. The only way that we have seen that you can survive is to make your own money online. And so Anna has created some guides, and we have tons of videos. So Anna, take it away.
Yeah, I know we've mentioned the thought leader blueprint several times, but I mean, and every week I know I'm sending some type of video or download. If you are a member, every week you should get a bubble up roll up. And inside of that, you'll have videos from us, you'll have the recording from the week, and you'll have some of these downloads that Melissa listed off, probably like 6 or 7 in the very beginning. But this one is, Melissa and I went through like a 4 to 5 staged process on really truly how do you take an idea and create it into a digital product. So this is just module 1. I can kind of just go through it, but essentially I take the theory from the videos. So each one of our videos that we've created are like 40 to 60 minutes long. It's like a true workshop. And then I take that hour-long information and I put it into tangible bite-sized things in here. So it's kind of just going through like the theory. I break it down in terms because we're throwing out a lot of, I don't know, highbrow terms all the time about these specific things and these concepts. And then I even, depending on what that module's theme was, whether I have prompts that you can actually directly copy and paste into ChatGPT or whatever AI you use to help you kind of get through your thought process. And I also just have different things that you can fill out. So I'll just, again, kind of, go through this. Go through steps. I'm very analytical and I need to follow like a list and a process. That's how my brain works. So I try to create these things how I would consume it. And as well, you pair it with Melissa and I's video that literally covers everything. And we walk through, we screen share, we talk about real life examples, really everything you need to know. So this is module 1. There are 4 modules in total. And at the end of this packet, you should be able to then start creating your digital product. And what we mean by digital product is quite literally this. So this is something now we are selling. So we just had an idea. We wanted to talk through something. Then we used transcription services and AI and Canva to create this. So that's kind of what we're doing in all these, quote, digital products we're talking about. We just take concepts, we record it, we get all of the information out, then we take the transcript, put it into AI, make it into something tangible, then create it in Canva. So we have so many of these on the divorcevault.com. You can actually buy yourself, as well as for our members, you get kind of like the shortened versions. Every week, something comes out. Anything else?
No, I think that is, I think that, again, all of the things that we are doing are kind of the examples of what you can do. And at any point, if you want to meet with us or talk about more of what would basically be involved in your case, the opportunity in the Divorce Allies is that every week we're going to answer these questions. So this is the first time that we've really gone through and tried to show you all of the resources. There's additional resources on our website. There's additional resources that we send out every week in these bubble up roll ups. But these are all on the divorcevault.com. And what we're trying to do is eventually get to the point where you have all the tools you need to do what you need to do. And at the point that you get stuck, you either come on Monday and you're part of the live session and you ask your actual questions and we answer them kind of rapid fire, or you book a strategy session and we can work one-on-one for your case. We move it forward. Like, a lot of people will bring their property statements to me. I look at all of the stuff. We come up with a strategy. They go and do the strategy for a month, and then they come back the following month and be like, okay, this is what happened. A lot of times we're even working when you have a full team. Like, you have a full team, right? We know that. Like, we're just sanity checks. But if you're struggling with money, you really need to consider like what you know. And that thought leader blueprint is going to give you money so that you can, like, if you start doing these things and you're like, I'm not the one for spreadsheets, I get it. I understand. Then make some money so you can pay those people, those experts, but they work for you. So when you hire a lawyer, come in prepared. Do the position statement. There's a free guide for the position statement out there as well. Like, we have free versions of these, or on our YouTube channel, we have the videos, the podcast, I mean, you will never not find a document or a file or a video that we've already created that is for free. Okay. We just have some of our guides are low payments. I think we have one last question on follow the money. When I'm going through the bank statements, I'm just listing the deposits and withdrawals, looking for patterns to begin with. Yes. You're not listing all the deposits and withdrawals. You're looking for some of the items that are really flagrant, right? And I'm going to do a whole seminar. Emily and I have already shot 2 videos on the follow the money. That's a very specific guide to walk you through the guide. Okay. So all of that's going to coming out. The question came from a member, so they're going to receive that. Or it's a pretty cheap download. Like none of our downloads are like over $55 at this point. I think this one, the follow the money, is going to be an expensive download, but we're going to take it 50% off. And then we're also going to put a 50% off for all the people that kind of watch this, and we'll send it out. If you registered for this, we have your email address and we'll send you out another. So probably the follow the money guide is going to end up to be like $33 or something today for the rest of the month. So look for all of that out there. We'll be posting it out online. Again, December 29th is going to be, even for our members, kind of a bonus session because that's the 5th week of the month. And I'm going to be going back through this, probably the follow the money in more specific terms, because that is a lot to take in. And we covered a lot of different areas today. So I don't know if we'll be going live on other dates in like TikTok or YouTube, but every Monday, 10 a.m., thedivorceallies.com. There will be a link that is for the next one. So, or download at thedivorcevault.com. So, and some of our members probably don't even know that exists. So there you go. That'll be a little bit extra, but those are the spreadsheets. And again, if you can't do some of this, it's okay. That would still be a strategy session. And typically if you're booking like strategy sessions with Emily or Anna, they're walking you through some of this as well. So, and then Kristen will be back, I think next week. We are actually talking with our pro se advocate, Tracy B. She's a former lawyer, and she helps you if you can do pro se, which is self-representing yourself, going into those hearings, being your own advocate. A lot of people get to this point because their lawyers leave them or they run out of money. So she answers questions, how to file, how to do some of these disclosures. Her and Emily are going to be here. If you have more questions on the house, that's going to be a great opportunity. The following week is going to be Anna and Kristen. A lot more about marketing, a lot more about these concepts. If you have questions about it, Anna's going to lead that, and how to start your side hustle. And it doesn't even have to be a big, like when we started doing side hustles, you like had to have a business and a website and all these things. No, now you need an idea, a concept, and stand store, and you are off to the races. And maybe like a social media, like pick one. But Anna is all things marketing. So I think that's all I got. What do you guys think? We good?
I think another great session. Their minds are probably buzzing, which is good.
We covered it. I think we'll have a lot of additional questions later.
Absolutely.
So this is good.
All right. See you guys next week.
Bye-bye.